We got Daniel here. We got some tequila.
Phenomenal mixed drink.
Nice. Steph is helping out today. Morgan's here. Okay. Yeah.
Ooh, that sounded sultry. Now I know I have a podcast. Your voice is amazing. Male audiobook narrators, super high in demand.
You know what? I have a problem if a book doesn't have like a lot of pictures, and I like I lose focus really fast. All right, so this is Jawfox post-production, episode 5.
Take one.
How's it going, everyone? Back at you with another episode of Post-Production, a Jawfox podcast designed to explore the creative process and the creatives within that process. Today, I'm joined by booktuber, YouTuber, literary connoisseur, Daniel Greene, who's here to talk his creative process, so stay tuned. What's up, everyone? Alexander, jawfoxphotography.com. Hope everyone's doing all right. As I mentioned, we are here with Daniel Greene tonight, talking the creative process. Daniel Greene is a career YouTuber, full-time YouTuber, been doing it for 4 or 5 years now.
Yep.
And has had some tremendous success on his YouTube channel. Talk to us a little bit about yourself. What is your YouTube channel all about?
So I talk about nerdy things, specifically around the sci-fi fantasy genre and books. I'll do author interviews, book reviews, cover the news, which I'm going to do tomorrow, and pretty much whatever kind of strikes my fancy throughout the week. That's one of the nice parts of the creative job,
Really
is I
good.
can just do a video with a friend. We did a skit the other week that did really well on the channel because it was just like, let's just do something outside the box. And we did, and it worked great.
Yeah, I mean, it's great that you can just do something as creative as that and just do it full time and have a lot of success doing it.
Yeah, there are days where it gets rough and, the comments get to you, but then there's other days where it's like, let's make a video where Tolkien's a snob and yelling at you for not being as prolific as him.
Well, I wanted to say, this will be the first podcast where there's some alcohol involved, so let's go ahead and do it. Cheers, yeah. Cheers. And, this is tequila. Tequila usually makes me a little, I don't know, what would you say, Steph? A little wild? Or
Close
yeah.
your mouth. You may say things you regret later.
That's actually really smooth. I wasn't much of a tequila guy until now, so that's nice.
Already slurring, I love it.
Yeah, I'll have to edit that part out. So on YouTube, you've been doing it 4 years now?
Full-time for about 9 months, and then I've been doing it as a hobby since my sophomore year of college. So, man, how long ago was that? Is that 8? No, yeah, like 6 years?
6 years?
Some amount of years. Time is a flat circle,
Yeah.
so we'll figure it out sometime.
Did you think it was going to take off, or what was your thought process when you continued doing it? You sustained your creativity?
Like many people who managed to get into the creative job sphere full time, it kind of started as a college assignment / I took that college assignment and realized I didn't know anyone who talked about the books that I wanted to talk about. So I was like, all right, the assignment was to try to make something go viral. And I went, okay, I'll make a really long video talking about my favorite book series. And I did. I put it up there, and I got a ton of comments being like, I love this. Do more of other things. And I was like, oh, cool, I'll do that. And it kind of just blossomed out.
Yeah.
And I have a college professor to thank for encouraging me to do that.
Very good.
And roll with it.
Yeah. What were the first type of books you were reviewing?
It's been fantasy since day one.
Yeah.
So fantasy and sci-fi. I talked about the Wheel of Time in my first video, and I still talk about the Wheel of Time. I'm redundant, is what according to a lot of my subscribers. So
Well, redundancy is good, I think.
Yeah. I'm perfecting the same speech.
Right. Yeah. That's. So what's your normal day-to-day routine? Do you start off with do you have a routine, or is it more of just kind of as the day comes? I mean, you got to have a routine, I would think.
You'd think being a YouTuber, it's kind of like something new every day, and I'm sure the Logan Pauls of this world would have that. But for me, it's very routine, very stringent, because I need to read a certain number of pages, I need to record a video, I need to edit a video, I need to get it ready to be released, which is a whole other process in its own. I also need to spend quite a bit of time responding to emails, authors reaching out, figuring out who I need to communicate with, who I need to basically ignore. Unfortunately, that's just at a certain point you get there. And so I would say, in detail, I wake up probably around 7 or 8, and I'm starting to record around 9. I used to read in the morning and then record in the afternoon, edit in the afternoon, but I've flipped that. So now it's mornings, record, edit, and then that afternoon, evening is a lot of reading. I try to do at least 100 to 200 pages a day, which, my eyes are not happy about.
Yeah.
I'll go blind by 30, but I've accepted that. E-readers are a thing, and so are audiobooks, so I will I'll rely on those one day for sure.
Why the flip in the routine? Was it just something that worked better for you? Obviously.
This is going to sound very not professional, but I'm willing to admit this. Basically, it came down to if I'm editing and it's 5 p.m., I'm not going to stop, so I will continue to edit until 9, 10, 11. And so I realized, okay, that's resulting because I'm not editing the video until 2 p.m. So let's start editing in the morning, and that way I'm kind of done with that more intensive work part of my life by 2 p.m., 3 p.m., and I can spend the evening till 6, 7 just reading.
Yeah.
So there's a good solid 4 hours in the back end of just reading on top of that, but it's the better thing mental health for me wise, because I don't feel like I'm working when I'm reading, because I still love reading books, surprisingly, after all this time. Reading does not get old. Read more is the slogan of my channel, and if anyone's listening and hasn't read a book this month, what are you doing?
So how long did it take you to kind of mold that process to where you knew that this was something that was working for you, or your routine?
It's had to be different, different stages. Before I went full time, I was a software engineer, so I had an 8-hour day. And then I would try to cram in a video in the evening, and I was doing daily releases almost even back then. So those videos were not as good quality, not as polished, and now it's just a lot more polish going into it now, which has resulted in more subs, more positive feedback. Before it would be like, okay, I stutter my words here, but I'm just gonna roll with it because I don't have time to retake it. No more excuses. So it's kind of just always shifted, but my current routine, I would say I've had since about 3 months after I went full time. There was a good 3 months where I went full time, and surprisingly, I was thinking I'll be more focused and more directioned on the channel than ever. But there was a good 3 months that I was like, what did I do? Why am I doing this full time? This is scary.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure, when you jumped into photography, there must have been something like that as well, where, oh man, I made this leap.
Yeah, it was definitely something that was, the term we used was burn the boats. We were on the island, and you have to just burn the boats to just fully pursue something that you were passionate about, something you really wanted to make happen. And it was scary. It wasn't like one of those things where I had the idea the day before and just quit my job and went into it. But it was definitely something I knew I wanted to do, and I planned for it over a year or two. It was a process, and process is everything. And then refining that process, continuing to refine it and identify where you have holes in your boats. Well, I guess you burnt the boat, so you can't.
You gotta get the metaphor clean.
Yeah. That tequila,
Yeah, there we go. There we go. It's time for a drink.
Yeah.
No, I completely relate. I mean, I knew for a long time that my channel was growing to a point where I was like, oh, this is going to be a full-time job. I saw it coming because I was having a rate of growth that very few people who talk about the kind of stuff I do on YouTube saw. And my income kept going higher and higher, and it reached a point where I went, okay, it doesn't make sense to keep putting all this time and effort into this 9-to-5 job that I don't love. Let's take that energy and put it in something that could be a real passion.
Yeah.
And I think it's important, especially when you're jumping into an industry like this that is a bit more, I don't want to say unstable, because everyone says being a YouTuber is unstable, when I always counter that with, hey, I can't be fired. It would take, the 100,000 people unsubscribing for it to affect me like that. So I don't think that my job is unstable, but it is also important to realize and utilize how many doors being in the fields like we are opens. You don't want to ever be stagnant. You want to be, I'm working on being published someday now. And I'm sure, as a photographer, you're looking into other things. We've talked about you're looking into videography. And you always need to be, looking at where you can put your foot next.
Right, yeah.
And you need to have that mentality.
Absolutely. That's very important. I think the photographers of the day, like when I was growing up, my dad with a camera, my granddad with a camera, they were great at photography, but they wouldn't branch out. And a lot of the photographers of that era wouldn't branch out. And I think we live in a time where social media is a big influence for creators and influencers and people that just are looking to rebrand or continue doing something they're passionate about.
Yep.
And finding that creative drive somewhere. I mean, authors do it all the time. We've talked about it before, how no story is truly original. It would seem that you just borrow elements from from other people as inspiration and,
Yeah.
and make something new out of it. When did you realize, because you're at 140,000 subscribers?
177 last time I checked. Yeah.
Very nice. And then, so when was it, what number, at what point were you like, this is going to be full time?
I think it was just north of 80 when I quit. 80,000 subscribers. Not 80 subscribers for anyone out there. 80,000 where I was like, okay, I need to go hand in my 2 weeks, which was the most nerve-wracking day of my entire life.
Yeah.
Going up to your boss and saying, hey, I'm going to leave this stable job with benefits to go pursue being a YouTuber.
Did you say that? Did you tell him?
Oh, yeah, I did. And there was a lot of like, oh, really? That's adorable. But hey, it worked out.
Yeah.
But, I was honestly more nervous doing that than telling my parents.
Oh, yeah.
I was more nervous telling my boss.
Well, what did your parents say?
They were both super encouraging.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I showed them like financially, like this makes sense for me. It's okay. And after that, they were like, okay, we trust you.
Yeah.
Because I think they were both just still in shock that I was doing it. I didn't tell my parents what I was doing until I was deep into it. It wasn't until I could turn around and be like, oh, I'm doing this. And by the way, here's evidence that I'm doing it well that I was willing to tell them.
Yeah.
I didn't tell most of my friends for a long time. I was doing it most of college, and I think very few people knew. Even my roommate, I kept it from him for a while, so.
That's got to be tough to like.
They wonder why you're talking so much alone in your room. They're like, what's going on? Do I need to buy a lock for my door?
Yeah. So, what's been your favorite piece of literature to review, or looking back through? You've explored a lot of different creatives.
Yeah.
Right in the literary world. What's been some of your favorite work and why?
That I've created or that I've reviewed?
That you've reviewed.
So that's the best things that I've covered have always been the authors who are helping push the genre forward in an aggressive way. Right now in fantasy, we're seeing this new wave that is completely unlike anything we've ever seen because the self-publishing boom happened. Mm-hmm. And in the self-publishing boom, we had a lot of crap. Like, not to be mean to anyone out there, but there was a lot of bad stuff put out in the self-publishing boom. But now people have basically put in better systems to find the occasional gems. So right now we are seeing people who have success that would have never had it before self-publishing was a thing. There is no way traditional publishing, which if you don't know, there's very few people who essentially controlled what got published. It was just a couple houses. And now they've had to really readjust their strategy to cope for the fact that they are being recognized as this older media, and this newer media, the best-selling stuff of today, is this stuff that they would have originally said no to. There's one book I love that I helped promote called Rage of Dragons. That was this African-European blend fantasy that they would have absolutely never published in the Western genre back in like the 80s, because it would have not been seen as a success, but now it's just skyrocketing and it's this huge thing in the genre. We're seeing so many more cultures be influential, so many more voices from different walks of life. It's not just, your Tolkiens, your Lewises, it's people from, middle of nowhere, America to in, some suburb and in the middle of a city, someone who never had a voice writes a story that people want to hear, and it can reach tens, hundreds, millions of sales, and that's fantastic.
That's just a testament to the world we live in now, where you can have such a presence. Like back 20 years ago, to make your own podcast. But yeah, we live in a day and age where you can be your own brand, your own producer, your own author, your own camera person, whatever the case may be. And it's a great time to be a creative, which is kind of where I'm finding inspiration, is just in networking and working with so many different creatives, especially in the Richmond area.
It also means the competition's higher than ever. Because so many
absolutely.
people have access to it now. The bar is just every day getting harder to reach, and it's especially like I've read this big thing like how Hollywood, so many like the new actors you see are actually the children of previous people in the industry. So like there's even just like that kind of gatekeeping going on. And that's why I encourage people to always start with their own thing. Don't be the person who just moves to LA with no experience and tries to make it. Like you need to make your own noise.
Right.
Do your own scene and come in correct with your own power and leverage. That's everything now.
Yeah.
And it's way more work. Oh, it's so much more work. I'd love to be in Hollywood in the 1920s where you just roll up to an audition, there's 3 other guys, both of them are drunk, and so you're like, all right, cool, I'm just going to roll in and nail this.
That's a good point. I think there's a lot more people in the game, but the reward's much bigger when you crush your game, so to speak. And it's not necessarily about like, at least for me anyway, it's not. I don't like look at other photographers or videographers and be like, I need to be better than them. I just try to be better than, I was yesterday, continuing my own brand, my own style.
I so am not that way.
Yeah.
I look at other people and I'm like, I need to be better than you. I need to be better than you. And I am competitive.
No, and that's a good thing too. I think that's absolutely, because you need to find that level you want to attain and get to. But I think there's also something to be said about just being in tune with yourself as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
it's wherever you can pull that drive from.
yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I absolutely agree.
What's going to get you out of bed in the morning borderline angry because you want to just make that content. You are just like, I need to do this. And you're almost like upset. You don't know why. You're just like, there's something in me that like I need to release this. And that's what's going to get you there.
So as a creative, your biggest fear was obviously getting started when you were getting started. But now that you've had some success, what's your biggest fear?
My biggest fear is just being outdone, being forgotten, being like thrown to the side. I know that kind of ties into the competitive thing where it's like I want to be improving continuously, every video slightly better than the last, so that no one can overtake my spot. And that's not the reality. I want to make that clear. Like that's not how this works. It's not like if someone else does well, I'll suddenly do worse. In fact, the opposite's true, especially in YouTube, where if someone who makes similar videos to me is doing really well, I'll get suggested, so I'll do well too. For me, it's just I don't want to get rid of that because I like that I've always focused on improving.
Yeah.
So I kind of torture myself in a way by going like, you will lose it. You really won't, but you will. So work harder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to, let's say, not necessarily YouTubers or booktubers, but any creative that's maybe struggling to find that push to burn the boats, so to speak?
So the biggest mistake I see, specifically for YouTubers, but I think it applies to everybody, is so you want to start doing, whether it's photography, whether it's videography, whether it's writing, anything, and so you start looking at what's being done and how people are finding success. And it's okay to walk the path they've walked for a bit, get your feet under you, get some experience, get to the point where you know what you're doing, but don't get comfortable doing that. Go outside the box. I would not have had the success I did in my specific niche if I didn't start innovating within that niche. That's where I started getting attention. Specifically, like no one specifically in the booktube community I'm in was covering the news, and I started doing fantasy news where I covered everything sci-fi, fantasy related news-wise. And suddenly it was like, oh, no one's been aggregating this news for us. Thank you, that's wonderful. So I started just taking off. And you need to. So I specifically was looking at like what is working in other YouTube communities, and I brought it in. So I think it's really important to, yes, start with what is expected, but as soon as you have that confidence, take a giant step out. Because the worst case scenario is, okay, you have one project that doesn't work out. No big deal. Do it again.
Yeah. Just keep going with it.
Yeah.
Even if you make a mistake, just keep going with it. Just
never be discouraged by failure.
Yeah. And I think that's the common denominator for every successful person out there, not just creatives, but anybody. It's just, you just keep getting back up after you fall down. You might get some negative feedback. Your family might not support you. You might lose everything, but you just keep doing it, and you'll eventually, I think, hit success.
There's a amazing story that's not in the creative field, but it's in the athletic one that I saw, and I was like, that's the mentality people need to have, where it's in that Michael Jordan documentary that everyone's watching.
Yeah.
It's about how someone stripped a ball from his hand, so he hired a hand strength trainer to make sure he had the strongest hand possible so no one could take the ball from him like that again.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's the kind of just like obsessive drive that is good, but make sure you have a leash on it.
But
breaks are. Let's re-hit that point real quick.
Yeah.
Nap, breaks, sleep, whatever you need to do. Don't burn yourself out. I've been guilty of burning myself out repeatedly.
Yeah.
And my work suffers as a result, and then my channel suffers. So.
How many hours do you think you put in a week?
60 to 70.
Yeah.
If not north of that.
Yeah.
Which is not healthy,
Yeah.
and I should stop. But I'm not going to for a while. So I'm a hypocrite.
Well, I think that's you're being real with yourself, and it's not all fun and games. It takes hard work, especially for someone that's staying regular and consistent on YouTube.
Well, there's a thing people say that I actually push back against, and that's that like if you want to succeed, you need to not push yourself. You need to push yourself. You need to work those 12, 16-hour days occasionally. That's gotta happen. It's about. doing them strategically. It's
Right.
about knowing like, look, I've put in 8 hours today and made 0 progress. Maybe I just need to stop.
Yeah.
Whereas also recognizing like I've worked 12, but if I stop right now, I'm going to lose this whatever it is that's keeping me going. So I'm going to
Right.
push a 16 today.
Right.
It's about, because if you're in the creative field, you usually have that flexibility if you're more successful. So it's nice to be able to recognize those days. I've had days where I've been able to barely be able to put in 2 hours.
Yeah.
And it's just because I'm so burnt. And then there's other days where I will literally work through to the next day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's, I just think back to when I was first getting started. It was very important for me to dedicate at least something towards what I wanted to be doing. And sometimes it could only be 30 minutes. Sometimes it could be a weekend. But, you know, if you're just starting out and you say you work 9 to 5 or you work nights or you work shifts or whatever, you know, just having that ability to dedicate some time, whenever that it can be, to do your passion or your craft.
Oh, it's so frustrating when you have to work another job as well, because you'll have moments where you're at that job and you're like, I have this idea, it's so fresh, if I do it now it'll be perfect, and you have 6 more hours of work ahead of you and you're like, I'll call it sick, I don't know, do I need to puke in the trash can, what do I have to do?
Well, Daniel, I appreciate your time and coming on the podcast to talk your thoughts, your creative flow, and your advice for other creatives in the area. So thank you for that.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So just the takeaways is, you know, identify your passion, cultivate it, grow with it, and designate some time for that passion, and work hard for it. And that's ultimately going to cultivate your passion, allow you to do what you love doing, and ultimately be a happier person.
Cheers to that.
Yeah, cheers. Thank you, Daniel. I appreciate it.
Of course.
And be sure to stay tuned for next week. Every Monday, rather, I'll be featuring a RVA creative or a DMV creative, or who knows, a creative. Check out Daniel Greene on YouTube. He has some awesome content. I watch it regularly. So yeah, I will catch you next time. Take care. Won't lose the footage this time.
You're totally, it happens to me. I've done that